These are some initial thoughts and questions and lines of inquiry as I go into Devoted and Disgruntled 14. For those of you that don't know what that is an open space conference. It begins in a circle. It takes place over 2.5 days, where the theatre community that's chosen to be there from all around the UK and maybe the world come together. There were a couple of hundred there last year in London to create their own agenda, their own conversation, to self-organise what they're passionate about over that 2.5 days and explore the theme, the invitation to explore what are we going to do about theatre and the performing arts. I've been to a few of these in recent years, and I go wearing different hats. I go wearing the hat of the founder and editor of FringeReview. I also go as a theatre maker from my own company, Rational Madness Theatre, and as someone that's loved and been passionate about theatre and performing arts, well, since I was a child. And I dipped into that world and probably made use of it in my other work in social sciences, in change, in trying to, write about that kind of stuff, as well as more recently into the world of exploring the world of digital addiction and distraction, which I've written about and made theatre about. And the themes going in this year follow for me a bit on some sessions last year that led to a regional Devoted and Disgruntled, as it's called, this conference up in Edinburgh, which was exploring the whole affordability of Edinburgh, the whole accessibility of this world's biggest arts festival and the challenges people are facing to even get affordable accommodation, to have their diversities recognised and celebrated, not just coped with. And that arts festival, which is a place that brings thousands of shows together, struggles with that, along with other theatre festivals around the world. The thing that's, I suppose, bugged me, and is a line of inquiry still, is what happens to our society when all the artists pay to play. And though there is still funding out there, it's been pretty much cut over years. It's been replaced with sponsorship and strings-attached funding, where artists have to meet various requirements, tick various boxes, fill in various forms, and as you'll find at the Edinburgh Fringe, often pay to play, where their love of art and their passion to say something, and just to entertain, is something where they don't walk away with sustainable living. It's even suggested that the arts doesn't deserve that, that it's something we can't really afford, that it's a luxury, that it's something more in the realm of entertainment. And yet there were times, and there still are places, I believe, in the world where the poets, the writers, the dancers, the boundary breakers, the performers, the actors, the singers, the comedians are not commercial people. They're artists. They are expressionists and impressionists. They have something to say, to express. They're dipped into the world. They're restless by the impressions the world makes on them, and then that comes out in the form of their own art. They are people that have something to offer, to advise, to disrupt thinking in government, in leadership, in community, in politics. They are places that those places should have as a first port of call to find out what the artist's response, those places of creativity that will challenge, question, just inspire and create thoughts, new thinking, new impulses that come from the impact that art can have on us as individuals, as groups, as families, as communities, even as whole governments and societies. And we don't value that. And there's always a sense of desperation at the Edinburgh Fringe, as there's a line everywhere from the kind of vanity publishing, which can be fun. We just want to pay to play and have fun at the world's biggest arts festival. But other people at the other end really trying to bring their restless response to the world and finding that they lose their shirts in the process. That art isn't funded, that art isn't sustainable anymore, that art isn't accessible. And even as the world's embraced diversity, that there are people along that line defining their own labels or being put into labels that can't easily become performers in any sustainable way. That might sound like a dark view, a kind of negative view, but it's my line of inquiry when we are asked a question like, what are we going to do about theatre and the performing arts? The great thing about Devoted and Disgruntled is the form it takes of an open space conference, where the agenda is created by the people who show up, where people respond freely to the invitation, which is that question, to come and organise their own conversations. And that's really probably the way forward now, is that we're going to have to organise these conversations beyond just being conversations, to that part of the question, what are we going to do? And if all we're going to do is have more conversation, then not much doing results from it. So my lines of inquiry are, and I'm just interested in what happened since last year and the year before. We were in London last year, and we were at Bristol before then. Devoted and Disgruntled, there's been 14 national, international conversations, as well as all the satellite conferences, lots of self-organised conversations, certainly evidence from the reports you can find online that people have come away restless to do things. But in this year, which has become cheesily called the Brexit year, but also the year where science is really pointing to some radical action that isn't being taken to save our planet in terms of environmental devastation, in a year where Bill Gates, I think, and some of his colleagues are talking about blotting out the sun to get global warming down, which bothers me. The realm of the singularity where we all plug into digital devices. I'm more interested in how we can use technology to maintain our creative freedom as individuals, as well as to enhance our lives. So I have a question about this technological world, this world that's increasingly dominated by materialistic science, that is very cynical about other modes of knowledge and understanding. We're in a world where, as I've mentioned, funding for the arts is no longer rich, it's no longer wealthy, it's no longer abundant, and it seems to be following the idea that artists have to become small corporations in order to attract income. And that, for me, is different from funding. That's different from a world that wakes up knowing that art is as vital to its healthiness as all the other resources that we use up. And value. So going forward, what are we going to do about theatre and the performing arts? Are we just going to continue as usual? Can the arts find a way now for it to find a place that's sustainable, that's accessible, that's joyful? And the people that can say we are sustainable, accessible and joyful, I'd love to hear those stories at this conference. I'd love to hear the advice and the wisdom, and to find out what questions that you're restless about too. It can be very easy to get depressed around the question, what are we going to do about, because it sounds like there's an inherent problem. And if that is an inherent problem, we've been asking it for a lot of years. So the creative generations that are there, aged 99 and still alive, and the creative generations that are 5 years old and represent the future 10, 20, 30 years from now, the people embracing technology, the people that are renaming things in the world, the people that are going to go to fringe festivals and arts festivals full of fire, the people who have succeeded in crowdfunding in ways that they feel comfortable with, the people who have donors, the people that still access successfully arts funding, the people that could start to wake up to the benefit of arts funding, who are able to influence politics, society at large, to recognise we need to fund art. That's not something that is a luxury we can't afford. It's actually a necessity we need to recognise. I'm really interested in the renewed conversation that's going to take place in Northampton this weekend, and there's still time to book, and it's impossibly cheap and impossibly successful in terms of every conversation that I've been to. It always works open space because we organise the conference, and there's such energy put in by Devoted and Disgruntled and Improbable Theatre to work in partnership with the venues and the people that get involved, lots of volunteer energy, but to make it accessible. They have bursaries if you can't afford to go. They try to make it accessible to all the diversities that are there, not just by coping with you, but by wanting you there and seeing the event as something less by you not being there. So don't doubt, whoever you are, that you don't have a place at Devoted and Disgruntled. The welcome is genuine and not cheesy. There's always tea and coffee on the go that we make ourselves. But what I love about it most is watching that agenda go from a blank piece of paper to 2.5 days of conversation, with a little bit of fear that it just gets parked at conversation, and a little bit of hope, and I have to be part of that, that where it can, the conversation lasts beyond the event and becomes action. What are we going to do about theatre and the performing arts in these times that we live in? And how do the artists that are going to come and read the reports turn frustration into restlessness and restlessness into action? That happens at this conversation. It happens once a year. And if you haven't gone, it's really affordable. It's really worth going to. And it's going to last beyond the event, but it's much better to be there than just read the reports. Hope to see you there.